The wedding invitation trembled between my fingers as the words left my mother's lips. "We've seated you at the back table with the distant cousins. You know how it is. The singles table." Her laugh crackled through the phone, casual and cutting. "And please, Natalie, wear something appropriate. Not one of those severe business suits. This is Paige's special day." I watched my reflection in my office window, 40 stories above Manhattan, the skyline stretching behind me like the empire I'd built while my family wasn't watching. The CEO of 3 successful tech startups staring back at me had apparently been relegated to an afterthought at her own sister's wedding. "Of course," I replied, my voice steady despite the heat rising in my chest. "Wouldn't want to outshine the bride." "That's not what my mother started, but I heard what she wasn't saying. "Don't remind everyone you're the successful one. Don't make this about you. Don't be you." Through the glass reflection, I watched my assistant approach with the quarterly reports that would determine the future of 2,000 employees. Meanwhile, my mother was worried I might wear the wrong shade of pastel to a ceremony. "My name is Natalie, I'm 34 and the founder of a tech security company. This is the story of how I stopped apologizing for success my family never bothered to understand. For as long as I could remember, our family had operated on a simple premise. Paige was the pretty one, the charming one, the one who made our parents' eyes light up at family gatherings. I was the smart one, the serious one, the one who needed to lighten up and focus on finding someone. Our roles had been assigned early and reinforced often. When Paige dropped out of college to pursue modeling, my parents framed her decision as following her passion. When I completed my second master's degree and launched my first company at 26, they called to ask if I was working too hard and ever planning to settle down. At 26, I'd launched my first company after completing my second master's degree, and by 30, I'd developed the encryption system now protecting most banking transactions in North America. It wasn't that they didn't love me. They just didn't understand the woman I'd become, a woman who found purpose in creation rather than connection, who measured success in innovations rather than invitations. To them, my achievements were curious oddities, interesting conversation pieces, but not quite as real as Paige's conventional milestones. Engagement, bridal shower, wedding. And now her third wedding was set to be the crowning achievement. A marriage into the Keller family, old money with new connections, real estate developments across 3 continents, political ties in Washington, and a family tree that appeared in business textbooks. This wasn't just a wedding, it was a merger. I spent 3 weeks preparing, not for the ceremony, but for what would come after. If my family couldn't see me, perhaps others would. I leveraged my company's business intelligence team and my network of industry contacts to research the Keller family extensively, particularly Ryan's uncle, Victor Keller, the patriarch who had transformed their family business from regional real estate into a global empire. His latest venture focused on cybersecurity infrastructure, precisely my specialty. The morning of the wedding, I dressed with deliberate care. Not in the pastel sundress my mother had suggested, but in a black column dress that whispered power rather than shouted it. Simple pearl earrings, hair swept into a low chignon, minimal makeup. I looked exactly like myself, the self my family had spent years trying to soften, minimize, and reshape. The Westlake estate gleamed under the summer sun as I handed my keys to the valet. Guests streamed toward the ceremony space, couples with linked arms, families adjusting children's bow ties and smoothing daughters' curls. I walked alone, invitation clutched perhaps too tightly in my hand. Inside the grand ballroom, the usher glanced at my name, then directed me toward the back tables with a sympathetic smile. I nodded, unsurprised, and took my assigned seat. Around me sat distant cousins, former college roommates, and friends who hadn't made the cut for the main tables. The singles table, the leftover table, the people who didn't quite fit into the perfect wedding portrait. "Natalie, right?" A woman about my age leaned over. "I'm Paige's old roommate. She mentioned you run some sort of computer company." "Something like that," I replied, watching as the Keller family entered, moving with the easy confidence of people accustomed to rooms rearranging around their presence. The ceremony proceeded with practiced elegance. Paige was radiant, of course. She'd always known how to command attention, how to become the center of any room. Our parents beamed from the front row, my father's chest puffed with pride, my mother dabbing at theatrical tears. Not once did they look back to see if I was watching. At the reception, I remained at my assigned table, observing rather than participating. The Keller family moved through the crowd like royalty greeting subjects, pausing for precisely the right amount of time with each important guest. Diane, Ryan's mother, a woman with surgically enhanced features and calculated warmth, made her way around the room, her gaze sliding past me each time she turned in my direction. An hour into the reception, my mother approached, champagne glass in hand, her smile strained at the edges. "There you are. Are you having a good time?" "You should mingle, Natalie. Ryan's cousin is single. He works in finance or tech or something." She waved vaguely toward a group of men near the bar. "I'm fine here," I said. "Congratulations, by the way. The wedding is beautiful." "Isn't it? The Kellers spared no expense. Diane and I have become so close planning everything. She's practically family already." My mother leaned closer, lowering her voice. "You know, you could make more of an effort. People are noticing you sitting here alone." I met her eyes steadily. "What exactly should I be doing, Mom? Pretending to be someone I'm not so the Kellers will approve?" She flinched slightly. "That's not fair. I just want you to be happy." "I am happy, just not in the way you recognize." Before she could respond, Paige appeared at her side, champagne glass dangerously full, cheeks flushed. "Mom, Diane is looking for you. Something about the photographer wanting family pictures." My mother brightened immediately. "Of course, I'll be right there." She squeezed my arm briefly before hurrying away. Paige remained, swaying slightly. "You came," she said, as if it were a surprise. I RSP'd yes. "I know, but you're so busy with your work stuff." She waved her hand dismissively. "Ryan's family keeps asking about you, you know, the mysterious sister who never shows up to family events." "Is that how you described me?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. She shrugged, the motion sending champagne sloshing dangerously close to the rim of her glass. What was I supposed to say? My sister thinks she's too important for family gatherings. "You could have said I built a cybersecurity company from the ground up, or that I developed the encryption system that protects most banking transactions in North America, or simply that I had prior commitments." Paige rolled her eyes. "God, Natalie, not everything is about your career. It's my wedding day. Can you just be normal for once?" Something shifted in me then, a quiet certainty replacing years of doubt. "Define normal," I said. She stared at me, confusion clouding her perfect features. "What? What does being normal look like to you, Paige? Because from where I'm sitting, I've spent my entire life being told I'm not enough while watching you being celebrated for simply existing." Her face hardened. "That's not true. You chose to be different. You chose to put work above everything else." "I chose to be myself," I corrected, "and for that, I've been punished with cold shoulders, back tables, and constant reminders that I don't fit the mold our parents created." "This is so typical," she hissed, glancing around to see if anyone was watching our exchange, "making my special day about your grievances." I smiled then, not unkindly. "I'm not making it about anything, Paige. I'm simply done pretending that your definition of success is the only one that matters." Before she could respond, a commotion near the entrance drew our attention. Victor Keller had arrived, fashionably late as powerful men often are, his silver hair and commanding presence immediately shifting the energy in the room. Conversations paused, heads turned, and even the waiting staff stood a little straighter. "That's Ryan's uncle," Paige whispered, instantly distracted from our conversation. "The important one." I watched as Victor scanned the room, his gaze sharp and assessing. When his eyes landed on me, something changed in his expression. Recognition, perhaps, or curiosity. He said something to his assistant, who nodded and made a note on his tablet. The reception continued, but I felt the weight of attention shifting. Victor Keller made his way around the room, stopping to speak with key guests, each conversation brief but focused. When he finally approached our table, Paige was immediately at his side, her hand proprietary on Ryan's arm. "Uncle Victor, I'm so glad you could make it," Ryan said, his voice carrying that particular tone people use when addressing someone who controls their financial future. Victor nodded, his attention already elsewhere. "Ms. Reed," he said, looking directly at me, "I thought I recognized you. Your presentation at the Geneva Security Summit last year was remarkable." The silence that followed was exquisite. Paige's smile froze, Ryan looked confused, and around us, conversations stuttered to a halt. "Thank you, Mr. Keller," I replied, rising to meet his extended hand. "I didn't realize you were in attendance." "I wasn't," he said. "But after 3 of my security advisors mentioned your keynote, I made a point of watching the recording. Your approach to quantum-resistant encryption is years ahead of your competitors." From the corner of my eye, I saw my mother and father exchange glances, their expressions a mixture of confusion and dawning realization. Diane Keller was staring at me as if seeing me for the first time. "Victor," she began, "you know Natalie?" He turned to her with mild surprise. "Know her. Her company's security protocols protect half our international holdings. When Ryan mentioned his fiancée had a sister in tech, I didn't make the connection." He looked back at me. "Though I'm surprised you're seated all the way back here." The implication hung in the air like smoke. Paige's fingers tightened around her champagne glass, her knuckles white. "Family dynamics," I said simply, offering no excuses for them. Victor nodded, understanding perfectly. "I'd like to continue our conversation about the Berlin project," he said. "Perhaps you'd join me?" He gestured toward the head table, where empty seats awaited beside the family patriarch. As we walked away, I heard Diane's urgent whisper to my mother, "You never mentioned Natalie was that Natalie Reed." The rest of the evening unfolded like a carefully orchestrated correction. I sat beside Victor Keller, discussing security infrastructure, while the wedding party looked on in varying states of confusion and reassessment. My parents hovered nearby, clearly unsure whether to be proud of my apparent importance or embarrassed by their previous dismissal. Later, as the dancing began, my father approached, his expression uncharacteristically humble. "Natalie, I had no idea your work was so significant." I met his gaze evenly. "I know, Dad. That's exactly the problem." He flinched slightly. "We've always supported you." "No," I corrected gently. "You've always tolerated me. There's a difference." My mother appeared at his side, her social smile firmly in place. "Everyone's talking about you and Victor Keller. Why didn't you tell us you knew the Kellers?" "For the same reason you never asked about my company, despite it being featured in Forbes last year," I replied. "You weren't interested." Her smile faltered. "That's not fair. We're very proud of you." "Since when?" I asked, the question hanging between us like a challenge. My father cleared his throat. "We've always been proud of you, Natalie. We just don't always understand your world." "You never tried," I said simply. "Not once in 15 years have you asked me to explain what I do, why it matters, or what it means to me." They exchanged glances, the truth of my words settling uncomfortably between us. "Well," my mother finally said, "we're asking now." I studied them for a moment, these people who had shaped me through both their support and their dismissal. "It's a start," I conceded, "but I'm not the one who needs to prove anything anymore." As I turned to rejoin Victor at the table, I caught sight of Paige standing alone near the dance floor, watching our exchange with an expression I couldn't quite read. When our eyes met, something passed between us. Not forgiveness exactly, but recognition. For the first time, she was seeing me as I truly was, not as the sister who didn't fit. Later that night, as the reception wound down, Victor handed me his card with a private number scrawled on the back. "I'm assembling a team for a new security initiative," he said. "Government contract, highest clearance. I'd like you to consider leading it." I accepted the card, tucking it into my clutch. "I'll think about it." He nodded, understanding the leverage he'd just handed me. "Family can be the most difficult negotiation of all," he observed, glancing toward where my parents were saying goodnight to the Kellers with newfound enthusiasm. "Some negotiations aren't worth the effort," I replied. And others? He asked. I smiled. Others are simply waiting for the right terms. I drove the familiar 90-minute route back to my Manhattan apartment, the contrast between the upstate wedding venue and city skyline mirroring the distance I'd always felt from my family. The way I'd arrived, but something fundamental had shifted. The validation from Victor Keller wasn't what mattered. It was merely the mirror that forced my family to finally see what had been in front of them all along. As I unlocked my apartment door, my phone chimed with a text from Paige. We should talk. Really talk. Soon. I didn't respond immediately. Some conversations require careful consideration, and some relationships need to be renegotiated from the ground up. But for the first time in years, I felt the possibility of being seen, not as the sister who didn't fit, but as the woman who had built something extraordinary while no one was watching. And perhaps that was enough of a beginning.